So what's going on, everybody? This is day 2 with Twin Flames Unite on our self-mastery class. And today, just like yesterday, we got some good information to share with you all, hopefully to help you really take life by the reins and really take control of some stuff.
Yes, and today is just going to be like a continuation from yesterday, because yesterday we did the basics of self-mastery. Then we got a little deeper into the subtle bodies, you know, how to really work with your body, how to work with your emotions. And we're just going to go a little deeper into the self-mastery. So I guess we can do...
Let me skip through. I don't know why that didn't start on the day that I put it on, but it's all good.
Yeah, we got some slides. We're just going to go through the slides. And today what we want to do is we want to start out with a little story. It's a small story, but it says so much. It's just about, it's 10 minutes, but it really breaks down what we covered yesterday and what we're going to get into today in a very simplified format. Anyone could understand it because it's super simple, the way the story is written and how it's broken down. Even a child could really grasp it. This is one of my favorite stories, and so we're going to start today's segment with this beautiful story. It's really explaining the 7 chakras, how they get blocked, and what happens when one of your chakras, one of your energy points are actually blocked or out of alignment, and how to clear them up and put them into alignment, and what happens when it does get into balance and it's unblocked. Then they sum it up in 10 minutes. It's a really good story. So we're going to play that story for the 10 minutes, and then we're going to break it down.
Alrighty. So let me go ahead and get that pulled up, and we're going to get it on and popping.
Sounds like somebody else is trying to join.
That's the website.
Okay.
Oh, we're not trying to hit that. I'm trying to hit this.
How? You must gain balance within your...
Hey, no, you said you could teach me to gain control of the
life before you can bring balance to the world. And the first step to gaining balance begins with this. Drink up.
All right, y'all, we're back in full effect.
Yes. What did you guys think about that video? That's one of my favorite videos. Any thoughts?
Ralph trying to join him.
Ralph trying to join us on the live. What did you guys think about the video? Anybody have any thoughts, any questions?
It's unfair.
Oh, well.
It's unfair. Gotta give up stuff.
That's the illusion. It's the illusion of us giving it up. We're really not giving it up. It's still there. We're just not choking it.
Well, I ain't getting no meat, so I had to give it up. I'm on day 3, no meat.
Oh, wow.
That's gotta give up things.
Yeah.
Because once you give up,
Because you can.
for other stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. Anybody else got any thoughts on the video that we just looked at? It touched on so many key points. I mean, I can relate to a lot of those points in the video, especially prior to my awakening. Anyone have any thoughts, any feelings on the video? Because we're just gonna dive right into the next topic.
Yes. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go ahead and bring this screen back up. Let me get this on and popping.
All right.
All right. Just get this. Here we go. Bit back. Boom. All right. So now y'all able to see what's going on with the screen? Just give us a thumbs up or just let us know if you're able to see. You should be able to see. All right. So for today, well, actually, let me back up so y'all can see the agenda. Let me go back previous.
There we go.
All right. So for today, we're going to be covering three things. One of them is going to be kind of brief, but we're still going to get into it. The first one is we're going to be covering the 12 natural laws. And then we're going to go through and review the chakras. And then we're going to go into mastering the elements.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to dive right into it and get right into the thick of things. All right. So the 12 natural laws. Now, where did this all originate? All right. Because, you know, when it comes to developing yourself and getting yourself to a point of self-mastery, you have to be able to build yourself up on something that's a good foundation, something that's strong, something that's not going to change on you. Because when it comes to man-made laws, we know each and every day that those laws can change the next day. So when you're looking at something that you want to build a foundation on, you want to look at something that's real, something that you can count on, something that's not going to change. And that's what we're going to be looking into today.
Yes, something as solid as the sun. The sun is going to rise and it's going to set every day. So you know you can depend on the sun. So you want to be in alignment with the natural laws, you know, sunshine, you know, sunset, you know, full moons. Those are all a part of the natural laws. And it's more that comes with it than just the sun setting and the sun rising. And when you really think about it, the sun doesn't really set, it doesn't really rise. It's just put like that, you know, just for basic understanding, pretty much. But yeah, we want to align ourselves with nature so that we can really experience this life in its fullest. And so that's what we're going to dive into right now.
All right. So we're going to move into the first law, which is the divine law of one, the law of divine oneness. This is one that was spoken of in the Avatar clip that we just mentioned, which is breaking the illusion that we're all separate.
Right.
Okay, because when you look into the law of one is the law. Wow, I'm saying the law of one because I'm thinking about the book. Sorry. The law of divine oneness is the foundational law according to which absolutely everything in our universe is interconnected, because we all came from source. Everything that's good, everything that's bad, all came from source. In other words, every choice, every word, every desire and belief that you have will also have an impact on the world and the people in your life.
And if you don't believe us, take a look at the situation that we're in right now. The whole world is being affected by it. So this is how you know cosmically we are connected, we are interconnected. The separation theory is an illusion.
Yes.
So if you want to think of the sun. I always use this example. Think of the sun. Look at the sun. The sun has many rays, each individual rays, but it's stemming from the sun. So it gives life. It's transformative also. So look at the sun, and you can see how we're all interconnected from the oneness. So that's the first one that you want to keep in mind.
All right. And on the next law, which is the law of vibration.
That's it. Nothing sits still. Nothing. As solid as it might look to you, it has a vibration. If something has a vibration, it's moving. But it's just that some things are on such a low frequency, such a dense frequency, it appears like it's not moving. A rock has a vibration. Everything has a vibration. So if you look here, it says the law of vibration. According to the law of vibration, every particle in the universe is in constant movement and constantly carries energy. Everything is energy. This applies to the enormous parts of the universe, like the planets and the stars. However, it is also applied to the chair that you're sitting on, the computer. Everything is vibrating. Nothing is at rest. And there are scientific studies that actually prove this. So this is not like woo-woo stuff. This is real.
Right. Yeah, because if you don't believe us, you can get if you have a really powerful microscope, or if you know anybody that has a really powerful microscope, you can actually zoom in to the point where you start to see the particles inside of a rock.
Right.
And you will see that those particles are actually moving. So this is, once again, these are laws that you can base your life off of, because they're not going to change, and you don't have to worry about being tricked. Because if you know that everything vibrates, then you can understand how this whole earth works.
Exactly.
All right. Now going into the next law, which is the law of correspondence. Okay. This is one that's actually talked about a lot when it comes to the secret, the quote unquote secret. In the law of correspondence, our current reality is a mirror of what is going on inside of us. Okay, so like in the law of attraction, they say that if you want to attract something new to you, you have to visualize it within yourself first. Because once you can see it inside of yourself, then you can actually experience it out in your everyday life. And that's what they're talking about, the law of correspondence. Because reality is just a result. Once again, it's a result of your inner dominant thoughts. Okay, our lives are filled with unhappiness, chaos, and just straight up, unfulfillingness. So when you want to understand the law of correspondence, it's the same thought as within, so without, as above, so below. So just like the trees have their roots, you also have your roots as well. Especially when you look inside of your brain, you look at the veins that are coming out of your eyeballs. You can see whatever's going on outside of you, you can always find it inside of you.
Right, and this how you apply this to your everyday life, because these laws are just laws that you apply to your everyday life. And to put it in a mundane way, a lot of people, they try to change their outside world, and they touch nothing within. So if your world comes across as being chaotic, that's because there is chaos on the inside. And no matter how much you try to fix what's going on, it could be a relationship. It can be maybe something's going on at your current job. It doesn't matter how much you try to fix it on the outside, nothing is going to change. It'll just appear as an illusion or something that is temporary. But if you really do want to make a shift in your life, you have to go within. And this is just understanding how the universe works. This is just how you would apply this particular law in your life. So if you want to change your exterior reality, you have to first change what's going on within. Because once you change what's going on within, then you'll see it reflecting on the outside world. And that's just a simple way of how you would apply the law of correspondence.
Now looking into the next law, which is the law of attraction, which if you notice when you go through these laws, they kind of overlap. But it's just a deeper understanding of another perspective of what's going on with these universal laws. Because when you look into the law of attraction, it's telling us that like attracts like. There are so many people that are trying to attract a new job, a new car, a new partner, whether it be a soulmate, twin flame, or just somebody, or just a warm body. It's just depending on whatever frequency you're vibrating on is going to dictate what you're going to attract to you. And it's actually something that you can actually piggyback off of on what we covered on day 2. Because in knowing that certain thoughts allow us to feel a certain way, depending on how we look at it through our belief systems, it can actually put us in a position to either feel happiness or sorrow. And whatever is at that level of sorrow, that's what you're going to attract. Whatever is at that level of happiness, that's what you're going to attract. And everything in between is going to attract like, attracts like.
Exactly. And I'm going to just use a lot of the mundane terms to make it simple. You know, that way you can be relatable to it. So let's look at a radio station. We all know that a radio station emits frequency. That's how you're able to hear what they're saying, because it's the frequency. We have the same frequency. And again, let's go back to the law that says vibration, right? Everything vibrates, nothing rests. Everything is moving. Everything has a frequency. Everything has a vibration. So if you turn to 97.5, you're not going to hear Kiss FM. It's just the way that it works. It's just understanding how this universe works. So if you're trying to hear Hot 97 and you switch to Kiss FM and you're like, well, why am I not hearing Hot 97? Well, duh, you're not on the frequency. So you have to get into that frequency in order to receive that message or that information. And the law of attraction it works the same way because it's the same thing. So if you're looking to attract love into your life, you have to be on that frequency in order to attract what you're looking for. You see, we don't get what we want, we get what we are, which is where you're at, where you're vibrating at.
And one quick thing I wanted to point out, and the reason why I put this magnets on here versus something else, because when you look into this magnet, you see it has north poles, it has south poles, right? Now, if you look at this, you're thinking, well, opposites attract, but not so much, because if you understand how the torus field acts, the torus field is just like a big bubble, if you would imagine just for a second, that at the top, information or energy is flowing in through the top, which is the north, and it's flowing out through the south. So if you look at this, actually when that south pole is pushing energy out, then that north pole is pulling it in, and as the south pole on the other end is pushing out, that north pole is pulling in. So that's how it's able to attract. That's actually just a little bit nugget to look into as far as torus fields and getting a better understanding of how that works. And you can understand how things can sometimes seep into your aura. Okay?
We covered some of that yesterday.
Yep. All right. Now on to the law of inspired action.
All right. So inspired action is all getting inspired first and taking action from a place of alignment. Notice the word alignment, right? It's about knowing that divine inspiration will strike, then acting on that inspiration quickly once it happens. So the universe likes speed. When people talk about creativity, they're often talking about the kind of action. Okay? So when you get that inspiration, you act on it.
Yep.
When you get, some people call it downloads, people call it uploads. And when you think of the word inspire, inspire comes from the word spirit. In spirit. Spirit comes from the word spiritus, a Latin word, which means breath. And anything that has breath has life. Okay? So when you get that life force that come in, that idea that comes in, that spark that comes in, get in alignment and act upon it. Yes. Right? It's that's what they call divine inspiration. Right? So understanding this and knowing how the world works, knowing how these, like the laws of gravity, like it's the same thing. You throw something up, that bad boy is gonna come right back down. So it's the same concept.
Yep. And just to bring it home just a little bit here, when it comes to the law of inspired action, when you look at this basketball player, he's gone through a lot of training, right? And in that training, he was pretty much taught how to go through he was taught how to go through and recognize when is the best opportunity for him to make a shot. And so he had to get himself in alignment as far as practicing and recognizing when to move and when not to move, when to go right, when to go left. And once you have that that training, that inspiration comes through, and so everything's in alignment. So now when he goes up to that hoop, hopefully he makes the shot and he ends up achieving his goal. All right.
So let's go right into the next one. All right. So this is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. The law of perpetual transmutation of energy states that energy is forever moving in and out of form. It is a cause and effect of itself and cannot be created or destroyed. So this is just really like so simple. Cause and effect. You know, you slap somebody, you just wait for the response. It's either that they're just going to be shocked or they're going to slap you back. Cause and effect. So whatever you do, just know that there's going to be a direct consequence for it. So with knowing this, you definitely you want to be in a place of awareness. You want to be in a constant state of awareness to understand that there is something called cause and effect. Right? You want to make your decisions in life based off of this one principle. You know, you cause something, you gotta know it's gonna have an effect somewhere else, and it's just how it is. Again, like gravity. Yeah,
because if you all have seen these balls before, you know that once he lets that red ball go, the other ball at the end is going to go out as far as the energy that was put into it, and then it's going to come right back.
Right.
This also goes into your emotions. Which is something we're going to get into in just a little bit once we get into the elements. But understanding that whatever emotion that you're feeling, like if you're feeling extreme happiness, that pendulum is going to swing and you're going to feel extreme sadness or whatever that extreme to that feeling is, and know that it's going to come back. So if you don't want to experience the extremes of whatever emotion that you don't want to feel, you have to be able to find a way to keep balance in between so that you can really enjoy those good times, and when those bad times comes, they don't hit you as much. Because with the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, you're going to experience both spectrums.
Right, exactly. And if for an example, I'll give you another mundane example. Let's say that you're in love, right? You met this person, they're great. You are just on the top of the hill. You are on cloud 22. Forget about cloud 9. You are happy, like you are. Ooh, that vibration is just cloud 23. You are up there. Now, let's say that person breaks your heart. This is a perfect example. So you are going to match that cloud 23 is going to go to the other side, to the 23, right? And you can feel it too. You can literally feel the dip, and it's going to be the same on either side.
Yes. And
now think of it another way. Let's say you met somebody and you're like, yeah, they're all right, they're okay. You know, whatever, right? Let's say they hurt you. You're not going to feel that much.
No.
It's going to be like, you know what, whatever. I didn't really like that person too much know-how. As a matter of fact, they kind of did me a favor.
Yeah.
Right? So,
right on.
Right. So as much as you went to one side is as much as it will go to the other side. Yep. And that's just a very simple way of knowing how that works in everyday life.
All right. And the next one is the law of cause and effect, which this is a pretty straightforward example, which is just what we spoke about a moment ago. Like this gentleman over here, he pushed those dominoes, which caused them to fall.
Very simple. Very simple and straightforward.
Very simple. Like if you pay your bills on time, then your credit score is supposed to go up.
Right.
You know, if you know you got to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but you go to bed at 3 o'clock, it's going to be pretty hard for you to wake up at 6. Okay, because you know your body needs proper rest. So just know that this, once again, also goes into connection with the law of correspondence. Okay, but just know that for every cause, there's going to be an effect.
Right, and for the other law of the perpetual one, that one is really telling you as much as something goes to the north, it's going to go to the south. As much as something goes to the east, it's going to go to the west. And the law of cause and effect is just letting you know, you touch that domino, it's going to fall down.
Yeah.
You don't pay that bill, the light's going to get cut out.
Right.
So cause and effect, and just keeping that in mind as far as these are just things that happen. Right.
And actually, speaking of money, we're talking about the law of compensation.
Yes.
Now, this is one that I personally feel has been neglected in such a way, but let's dive into it. So with the law of compensation is another restatement for the law of sowing and reaping. Okay, it says that you will always be compensated for your efforts and for your contributions, whatever it is, how much or however little. Now, we have a lot of people who work in the spiritual community, and for those who work in the spiritual community, sometimes they really find it hard to charge for their services. But you have to but those individuals have to understand that what is money? Money is currency, and currency is energy. Okay? So if you're providing a service, if you're providing a product, you're putting all your energy and services into developing that service or that product. So you are supposed to receive energy back, whether that's in the form of currency or just straight up energy. So there's always a law of correspondence that's going on, and in most cases, it's not always money. Sometimes you're receiving love. Depending on gratitude, depending on what you're putting out, you're going to end up getting back some other type of heartbreak. This goes into the cause and effect, because if you go out and you cut somebody out, don't be surprised that the energy that you just put out from cussing somebody out, that they're going to come back with some bad vibes on you. Right.
And with the law of compensation, this is one thing that Atia Lee, which is my shaman, one thing that she really explained as far as in the spiritual community, that my baby was just saying, when people feel that they shouldn't be compensated for their services, it's because they have been taught a very negative way of working with some sorts of compensation, like money, for instance. It's a very negative connotation that has been put on money, like money is the root of all evil, and all this type of stuff, which is really, it's not true to a sense.
It's just a belief system.
It's a belief system, because the money is not bad. Like, just like a knife is not bad. You're making some really delicious food by cutting up the onions with the knife. Right? You're doing a lot of good stuff with that knife, but people can also use that knife to hurt somebody else. So the knife is not bad, but it's what you do with that energy that is, if you want to call it bad. All right? And she was telling me that it is very important to have a mutual exchange of energy when you're working with anyone. And the way that she explained it to me, it made so much sense, because when you know that everything is energy, you will really understand the law of compensation better. Okay? So take, for instance, she said that there are times when she would do healing work on individuals, but she said that because of just how this world works, how the universe works, in order for the healing that she's doing for it to take place, you really have to work with these laws. Okay? There has to be a mutual or a balanced exchange of some sort. So she was giving me an example. She said, take, for instance, someone who really cannot afford to pay for the services, right? But they are like so grateful that they're receiving this service.
Right.
That would be congruent to the law of compensation, because it's like they're exchanging their gratitude for the service, and it's genuine. And this is why it's important to understand the difference. So when you have something genuine, like gratitude, and you're not able to compensate in another way, then it works. So the energy that she's delivering, the catalyst for the healing can take place.
Right.
Now, let's say, take for instance, it's another individual who's coming to her and not wanting to, pay for the services so that they can have that natural compensation going on. They can do it, but they're not. So now that becomes like a deception in the exchange.
Yes.
And so because there's a deception in the exchange, she won't be able to be that catalyst that she wants to be to perform that healing. And it's not that she's blocking it. It's just how the energy will exchange itself. Right? And so when she explained that to me, that really hit home, because it makes sense when you think of the law of compensation, just having that balance.
Yes.
So just something to think about. And just as a recommendation, if you guys have not read the book by James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, please write that down.
Yes.
And read the book. If you're not a reading person and you like to listen, you're more of an audio learner, there is a book on YouTube and it's completely free. Okay, so there's really no excuse here. And this book changed my life.
Yes, it's changed a lot of people's lives.
It changed thousands, hundreds, if not millions of people's lives.
Yeah.
As a Man Thinketh, get that book.
Yes, and that goes right into our next slide, which is represented by this book, which is called The Law of Relativity. Okay? The Law of Relativity is all about the neutrality of things when seen in isolation. So no particular person, experience, emotion, or action is evaluated as good or bad until you look at it in a comparison with something else.
Yes. So the thing, and this is going to be hard for some people to grasp in the beginning, but once you, the deeper you dive, the more things open up to you,
clear,
and it comes clear. No thing is good or bad. When you think of things as far as good or bad, that's the duality, that's the separation, that's the illusion. Thought is what makes something good or bad. That's what makes it good or bad. It's the thought. And again, sometimes it's hard to grasp, especially from your perception, from people's perception. It might be a little bit hard to grasp at first. But read this book, As a Man Thinketh, and a lot of these things will just make so much sense.
Yes. Okay?
So just know emotion. It says here, so no particular person experienced emotion or action is evaluated as good or bad until you look at it in comparison with something or someone else.
Yeah. And just a quick example of that, just think about it. In the early 1600s, when the colonizers first came over to the United States of America. When the colonizers came over, for example, they had shoes on, right? And they thought that was the way to go. But the indigenous people, a lot of them walked around barefoot, and that was acceptable to them. But then it didn't become like wearing shoes or being barefooted wasn't something that was looked at as either good or bad. It was just a way of life. But when you start adding two different perspectives to things, then the labeling starts.
Yes, and the thought of it gives it that label, which is good or bad.
All right. And so for the next one, we're going into the law of polarity.
Oh, yes.
Now, this is another one in the spiritual community that is definitely something to be understood, okay? Because if you're really looking for a breakthrough, understanding the law of polarity is something it's a major key.
This is a major key right here.
Okay, so when you think of, I read the last one, you read this.
Oh, it don't matter who read it, baby. Okay, so the law of polarity. Okay, so when thinking about the law of polarity, the most important thing is to remember is that absolutely everything, and I mean everything, has an opposite. Okay? And that is its very existence of those opposite that allows us to understand our life. Consequently, when we go through something difficult, it will be this thing that helps you truly appreciate the good developments to come, or what we perceive to be good.
Right.
Okay? So understand that, it's, if you didn't know what hate was, you really can't experience love to the fullest capacity, and vice versa. So one thing is really needed for you to experience the other. Like, gratitude. If you've never had somebody like treat you indifferent, then you won't be able to appreciate the other side. Like, let's use a relationship. So you might have been in a relationship that's not serving you. You're miserable. The person doesn't treat you good. They're just all kinds of wrong for you, all kinds of toxic and dysfunctional. So you leave that relationship, you get yourself in alignment, you get yourself balanced, and so now you're in this different relationship. This person is wonderful, they care, they're everything the other person was not. How much more can you appreciate that other person just from having the experience of the opposite?
Yeah.
Right? That you're thinking that's an angel right there. Because you're like, oh man, this is not what I had.
Right.
But think of it this way. If you never knew what it was like to really have someone, toxic or whatever you might call it, and all you knew was somebody treating you good and treating you nice, then you could take that person for granted easily, right? So sometimes, and I think that goes into life lessons, why we are really here on a deeper level with these life lessons, right? So that's just the law of polarity, just understanding that everything has its opposites. And with the two, the positive and the negative, within that is where you find your power.
Right. And one other thing to take away from this law of polarity is that if you look at the battery, this also ties back into the law of oneness. Because if you look at this battery individually, you'll notice that it has a negative side and it has a positive side. This is also a representation of us.
Yes.
Because with the current situation that we're in, we know that there's some people out there that are trying to control the population. And then, that we have the people out there who are wearing the mask and they're afraid of what's going on. But then you have the other people who want liberty for everybody. And then you have the other side of people who say that, oh, I'm healthy enough, I don't need any mask. What the hell's wrong with you? But with the law of polarity, you can have a deeper understanding and know that every aspect of those people that you dislike and the people that you do like, they all exist within you. Because there are parts of yourself that you dislike, there are parts of you that you love, but they're all you. So with the law of polarity, that can help give you a little bit more clarity and help you get some breakthrough and end up taking your power back.
Yes, and understanding that really and truly, all is self. They're just different versions of you outside of yourself, and through different choices or different experiences, that they make in life. And so you find, sometimes we find ourselves detesting something so much, but then, that's just, when you find yourself detesting or disliking something so much, it just means that, it's a little bit of shadow work in there that needs to be done. That's all.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's snagging at you. You're snagging to the other side.
Right.
Rather than kind of being more balanced.
Right. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it. This is the last thing I'm going to say before we move to the next slide. If you look at the picture of the battery, you'd notice that it's, well, not so much, but just imagine, if you will, that the positive side represents that it's 50% full and the negative side represents that it's 50% negative, right? But if you take all of that energy and you put it to one side, you end up draining the battery. Okay? And once you drain the battery, most of the times, if you look at it in the physical sense, that's when we check out. When you put it too much to one side, it's meant to be balanced. It's meant to stay in the middle. Okay? But I'm just going to say that and move on.
All right, so let's go to the next one, the law of rhythm.
All right. So with the law of rhythm, sometimes called the law of perpetual motion, the law of rhythm is unsurprisingly focused on movement. In particular, it refers to the fact that all things come in cycles.
This is one of my favorite ones.
All things come in cycles. Because not only, as you can see from this picture, that our seasons come in cycle from winter, spring, summer, and fall. Our days come in cycles. We have day and night. They come around. They're constantly moving. You got the hand on the clock that's constantly moving. And I'm going to let you say the other one.
Okay. So when it comes to women, we have our cycles also, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, we have our cycle until it's time when we don't have that cycle anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a whole genetic thing, but we're not going to get into that other avenue. But yeah, so cycles, they come and they go. So again, we're going to go back. I'm going to always reference this as within, so without, because it's one of the biggest things to really get to work and to move around in this realm of reality. When you understand as within, so without, a lot of things become clearer to you. Mm-hmm. and how you apply this aspect to your life on a mundane day, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking of rhythms. Okay, so if there's rhythm outside of me and it's as within, so without, if there's rhythm outside, there's rhythm within. Mm-hmm. And this is where the game changer is. Yes. Is recognizing your own rhythm, recognizing your own cycles. This is a key one. So you just listen up. This is key. This is a major key. This is one of the major keys. Yes. Okay? So you have to be able to study yourself. You have to see your cycles. You have to know your seasons. And this is why a lot of people, they get stuck in loops because they don't know their seasons, and sometimes they miss their seasons. Mm-hmm. So nature knows her season. Mm-hmm. Nature knows her season really well. Nature knows when it's springtime, when it's time for the flowers to bloom. Mm-hmm. She knows when it's fall, when it's time to let those leaves shed. She knows when it's wintertime, when it's time to turn inward. Nature knows all of these things. We can learn a lot from nature. That's our mother. That's why they call her Mother Nature. She's the mother. Okay? Yeah. And so when we learn what our rhythm is, and nobody can tell you what your rhythm is. First of all, I want to say no one can tell you what your rhythm is. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could observe and they can draw some conclusions. Yeah. But on the inside, you're the only one who can really say what your rhythm is. Yeah. And so you might have a cycle of every 3 years. Your cycle might be every 5 years. Shoot, your cycle might be every, 2 months. But you have to recognize within your life, and the only way you can do this is through retrospection. Mm-hmm. So you have to really take a look at your life within the past 7 years, and you can draw a circle to represent your rhythm. Or just to put it in another terminology, recognize your patterns. Your patterns in simpler form. Recognize your patterns and see when your season is. Because we have to know when is our time to plant and when is our time to harvest. Mm-hmm. Because if we're planting in the wintertime, we're not really going to... You're not going to have too much of a harvest. Nothing is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Okay? But if you recognize what your cycle is, your own individual cycle, like Mother Nature knows her cycle, then you will know when is your springtime. Right. When it's time for you to plant your seeds. And then you would know when it's time for you to harvest your seeds. Mm-hmm. And you do this through studying, studying yourself, going in on the inside, looking at your life, doing retrospection and going within. This is the only way you're going to find what your rhythm is. Right. Yeah. There you go. Once again, these are things to really help you as far as self-mastery, because, yesterday we really started with some external things when it comes to emotions, thoughts, and things of that nature. Now we're going a little bit more inside so that you can actually gain some control over the inside
man or woman, to be able to create the world that you want to experience, because tomorrow we're going into some manifestation stuff, and these things are what you need to have in the forefront of your mind to really help you in manifesting. Okay? And then for the last law, which is the law of gender.
The law of twin flames. No, let me stop. I'm playing.
The law of gender, just in a sense, because this is one that gets confused with sometimes. Because when you see the word gender, most people automatically think male and female. And it's not so much male and female. It's actually going back even more to just energy.
Yes.
Okay? It's actually going back to the law of polarity. It's also going back to the law of oneness.
The yin and the yang, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the anema and the anemas, right? More of that energy. It's on an energetic level, not on like a body part level.
Right. So, in a sense, if we had to give an example of somebody who was the embodiment of each, the male energy as well as the feminine energy, you can look no further than Prince. That gentleman right there embodied everything when it came to the female side. I mean, look at the way he dressed.
Yeah, he was really comfortable. When you think about it, and when you think about the energetic side of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, you're thinking about archetypes. Okay, it's more on the level of it's archetypical. So with the divine feminine and the divine masculine, they have different traits. And so if you can balance those traits within yourself, you're able to have a very harmonious experience in life. Your relationships become harmonious because you understand. Some people, they're very polarized to one side of the energy, and that's just from programming. That's all, and distorted perceptions, distorted information, and so we could only act upon what we know. I mean, it's not really a thing of blaming. It's just we can only do what we know,
right?
And we only know what we were given or what we were shown,
right?
Without knowing to introspect. Right?
So true.
So when we speak of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, if you want to tie it into the physical world, you look at the left and right hemisphere of the brain and how it functions. And to go a little deeper, the left side of the brain controls the right, and the right side of the brain controls the left. So you see how that intertwines right there? Pretty crazy, isn't it? That means they're supposed to work together. Right. They're supposed to be in balance. Because if you're not in balance, you're going to be doing a lot of weird and distorted things.
Right.
Okay? We could go deeper metaphysically, but it'll throw us off.
Yeah. Right. And so we're just going to... so that's the part for the 12 universal laws. Once again, these are some things that you really want to take some time and go back through and just reflect on each one of these laws. Understand it inside of yourself and then understand it externally from yourself so that you can really grasp the concept. And I tell this to a lot of people, that if you're able to explain this in such a way that you can explain it to like a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, then you really understand it, and in some cases overstand it. Okay. And so just to sum up the law of gender, just think about the role each of the energy appears to play in your life, and whether there is an excess or a deficit in either aspect. So, you have the divine feminine will be the nurturing role. The divine masculine will be the more logical side, the more protective side, and things of that nature, because they have two very distinct energies. And if you're able to balance those two, oh man, you hit the home run. And again, balancing these energies, it really doesn't have anything to do with 50-50, 100% of the time. No. Sometimes you won't do 50-50. Sometimes you'll do maybe 80-20, but that's still balancing it out. Right. Depending on how much of that energy you need to use in that circumstance, situation, or person.
That's the balance idea right there. Is knowing when to use enough, where, how, and things of that nature.
Yep. Now on to the next section, which is we're going to be diving a little bit into the chakras.
Yes.
Now, surprisingly, if you knew this or if you didn't know this, the earth has its chakras as well. So this, once again, goes into the 12 universal laws, as within, so without, as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look externally, the earth has chakras as well. And I actually have a little plan for us to actually go through and visit all 7 of the chakra points in the world. So that's a big goal.
This is a beautiful goal, and a lot of people have done this.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, there are a lot of individuals who would just pack up their stuff. Because when I was young, I used to always want to know why people would just pack up their stuff and just move to Africa and just study Africa. Or, these geologists and all these people, they just move to different parts of the world and just study it. And I used to always wonder, why are they going to these places? And if you notice where the chakra points are, you will also see that they have, you know about the 7 wonders of the world?
Mm-hmm.
All those places that people want to visit, these sacred places that they call them, that everybody want to flock to, and everybody want to visit, and so much healing takes place there, and people don't know why. And this is why, because the earth has chakras.
Yeah.
And the mamas protect the chakras of the earth. If you guys don't know about the mamas, they have a video on YouTube, and you can look them up, and you can see they are literally guardians of the planet.
Yep.
Okay, and nobody taught them. Okay, no, they didn't go to any. They never been to school in these regular schools. They just know. They just know the earth, just naturally. So just to really go into it quickly to show you guys, if you can see on the screen, you'll see where the main chakras of Mother Earth is.
Yeah.
The first one, we have the root chakra. Okay. And so if you can look up there to see where the root chakra is pointing at.
Yeah, the first one is the first root chakra is in California. So that's our first spot to stop at, which is in Mount Shasta in California.
Yes, we were supposed to go there last year too.
Yeah. And then the second chakra is down in South America, which is the
that's the sacral chakra.
Lake Titicaca. All right. And then you move on to the third one. Oh, I just lost my
the Lake Titicaca. Lake Titicaca is in Peru.
Yes.
So everybody's going to Peru for their ayahuasca retreat. I wonder why.
All right. And I think the third one is off of
that's in Australia. That's the solar plexus.
Yeah, solar plexus. There we go.
It's in Australia. And that's called what is it? Uluru. Kata Tijuda. That's in Australia. That's the solar plexus.
All right.
And then
the fourth one, which is the heart chakra, that's up in Glastonbury. That's in England. And then you have the fifth chakra, which is the throat chakra, which is in Egypt.
Yeah, that's in that's the Giza. That's Mount Sinai. And again, everybody always want to go to Mount Sinai, and you wonder why are they going there? Like, what do they have up there? The throat chakra. That's what's there.
And then the sixth chakra, which is the third eye chakra. Now, this one is a little confusing because the third eye chakra, the location of it shifts depending on how the earth is rotating.
Yes.
There is a website, and I should have pulled the website up.
In Capricorn, it's going to be in Belize. I think when in a few years, I'm not sure when, but I think when the earth, we should have got the website, but it does shift, and the next shift is going to be in Belize, the third eye chakra.
All right, but then the last chakra,
which is not least,
which is the crown chakra, we're talking about getting connected with everything,
Man.
is in Tibet.
Yes, this is where the Tibetan monks are in the Himalayas, up in the Himalayas mountains. This is when you are ready to really experience everything. That's where people go, up in those mountains. It's an experience, but you got to go through those other chakras before you can go there, only because you don't want to go crazy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because you can't just skip chakras. This is not like the video games where you can put in the cheat codes and go from level 1 to level 7. No. You're going to end up breaking some stuff.
You have to have a solid foundation before you even get up to the 7th chakra. Otherwise, you can really hurt yourself.
All right. And just to cover real quickly, as far as our chakras that are in our bodies, you can find the root chakra, which is mainly tied to your survival mode. That's at the tailbone of your spine. A lot of people think that it's right in the genitalia area, but it's actually just a little bit below that. It's at the base tailbone of your spine.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have coming up just a little bit further, and this is right between the pelvis area and between the belly button. So it's not past the belly button, but it's a little bit below the belly button. Okay, that's where you have your sacral chakra. And then you have your solar plexus. And the solar plexus is really connected with your willpower. And that's right above your belly button, right in the stomach. Okay, and then we have our heart chakra, which we all know about, that's tied to our emotions, our compassion, our love. That's where you can find those chakras. And then we have the throat chakra, which, if you remember from the video from the last airbender that we showed earlier, we're talking about being able to vocalize. And a lot of times, like you said, it is blocked when we lie, even to ourselves. And you don't have to say it verbally. You can just be thinking it, lying to yourself, and you can end up blocking your chakras. That's why it's really important to stay authentic.
Stay true to yourself.
And then I'm just going to knock out these last two real quick. Then we have our third eye chakra. This is the one that really connects you with your intuition, being able to see through the illusions, which is right at the base of your, right in between your eyebrows. And then we have the crown chakra, which really opens us up to connect to everything. That's right above your head. It's called your crown chakra. Right above your crown. It's just a few inches above your head.
Right, and this one is, if you guys remember in the clip that we looked at, this one is the chakra that gives people, a lot of people, difficulties to open up, because in really opening up this chakra, you have to let go of attachments. And, you know, people, they think about my kids and, you know, my grandmother and, oh, the love of my life. And their thought, when they're thinking about letting go, they're thinking about, like, in the sense of forever. Like, you know, just stop caring about them or stop loving them. That's not what it means.
No.
It's if you want to think of letting go in a sense of opening up the crown, think of holding something in your hand so tight that it's literally stopping the circulation in your hand. Right? You have something in your hand, like let's say you have some grapes in your hand, and you're just squeezing, you're literally squeezing the life out of the grapes. Okay? So what this means is, when you think of, you know, opening up the crown and letting go, it is the release of those grapes.
Yes.
Okay, you release it. It doesn't disappear, but it's the release, that tension, and knowing all is self. And in that recognition, in that understanding, you're able to let go of things.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So we're about to move into our next spot. But before we move into that, one other thing you need to understand as well are the ley lines as far as energy points throughout our world. Now, for most of us, we're in the U.S., so we pulled up the chart to show you some of the ley lines that are in the United States of America. Okay? And this is where you can feel a lot of different energy. Depending on where you live, the intensity can be pretty strong. Like for the ones that are in the
DC area.
Yeah, in the DC area. As you can see on the chart, let me go back to my little drawing tool here.
There is 1,000 voltage in DC for the transmission of the ley lines. So you know it's super, super powerful in Washington, D.C.
Yes. And some of those, and just looking at it, you can see that a lot of those lines are along the coast, where you have a lot of people that live on the coast. And so a lot of this is not by accident, family. When you look at what's going on as far as, now, I'm just going to say this and then we're just going to move on. But as far as the other entities that are around us that know these things, as far as these ley lines and how to get the energy and how to get people to do certain things, they're utilizing these ley lines to help move their agendas. You can do the same thing. So if you're around these areas and you can find where these ley lines are, then you can use it to your benefit as well.
But I would suggest that you study it first. Don't rush into something that you don't understand. Because these ley lines, typically you have a lot of paranormal activities taking place. A lot of ley lines, you will find very important buildings around ley lines. You will find, I guarantee you, like I can put money on this. If you look at these big churches, and this is not anything against churches, it's just for you to know. It's just for your own knowledge. If you look at these big churches, they are on ley lines. And they put them on ley lines for a specific reason. Any big important building that you see, more than likely it's going to be on a ley line. Okay? But you can, if the map is right here, you can go ahead and you can do your own research whenever you have some time, so you can learn a little bit more about it, because you really want to know what's going on around you so that you can know how to maneuver around it. Okay, that's why we decided to show the ley lines.
All right, but now we're getting into the last section of our workshop here, or slash class, and we're going into mastering the elements. And with the elements, like I said before, we're not just talking about earth, wind, water, and fire. We're also including spirit. So many times the spirit is actually left out of explaining the elements, but it's an essential part. It's actually the part that actually drives a lot of these other four elements. So we're going to get into that in just a second. All right. Oh, and also, just pointing out here on this slide, you can actually see the esoteric symbols for each one of these elements. Some of you may already be familiar with it, as far as the fire element, the air element, the earth element, the water, and then the spirit. And it's and I really like the fact that the spirit one is just a circle, because it's just showing how it's forever going, forever moving. And when you understand that your spirit is just always going, it's always in a circle, it doesn't have an end. It doesn't have a beginning, and it doesn't have an end. So, and just seeing this symbol, this sacred geometry symbol, you can take comfort in knowing that even when you do pass on the glory, or you do go on to the next level, it's not the end.
Right. It's a transition phase. You master the elements, you master the transitioning phases.
All right. And one other thing to keep in mind here is that understanding the elements, you first have to get an understanding that they are all within you.
And we're going to go back to one of the principles again. Say it with me, baby. 1, 2, 3.
Which one? Hold on. Which one?
Come on, man. Right. Okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3. As within, so without.
Oh gosh. But yeah, but as you can see here, just on this illustration, through this gentleman here, he has access to all of the elements all within him. He has some fire there. He has some water there. He has some earth. He has all of it. And then he has his spirit that is within.
Beautiful.
So all of these elements exist within you. You don't have to search outside of yourself.
Yeah.
That's a trick. That's an illusion.
Yeah, that's another illusion. That means that the third eye is blocked up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all within you. All within you.
Yes. So going on to the first element, which is earth.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to start with earth because that's where we are.
That's the most basic. So as we know, with the chakras, the root chakra is represented by the earth element,
Mm-hmm.
which is survival, which is the here and now. Ground, soil.
Yes.
This earth chakra is the root chakra.
Yes. And one of the things that also have to be understood when you look into the elements is that they both have the power to create, and they also have the power to destroy. And we're going to be looking at that we're going to be looking at that in all of the elements. Just off of the picture that you see here on the left side, where we have earth is beautiful. You got the green grass, the tall trees, the beautiful brook just flowing through. But then when you look on the right side and you look at the effects of an earthquake.
Mother Earth got an attitude. She got an attitude. Just like we females get attitudes.
Yep. But some of the characteristics of earth is that earth is stable.
Yes.
I mean, if you stand up right now, you can stand there and you won't move. You won't fall through unless you're around a sinkhole. But once again, that's one of the destructive natures of Mother Earth.
Yes.
But for the most part, it's stable, it's nurturing, it's grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And even though you can see earth outside of you, your body is one of the best representations of earth, because earth also includes salt.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure if you lick yourself right now, you can taste some salt.
Especially if you're sweaty.
Yeah, especially if you're sweaty. All right. But now, as far as getting into mastering, how will we get into mastering the earth element?
All right. So mastering the earth element, first and foremost. Before we even begin trying to master these elements, we have to master ourselves.
Yes.
Okay? And understanding that these elements are within us, and we know as within, so without. We have to, the first step in trying to master earth is you have to be authentic with yourself.
Yes.
Okay? So you have to look at yourself on a very real level. Very, very real. And so one of the ways that you can start out is by doing what's called mirror work. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of videos on YouTube showing you how to do the mirror work. But one of the best ones that I've seen is Teal Swan. She did one with the mirror work, and it is just awesome. Like, we tried it before, and it really does get you deep into self.
Yes.
So doing some mirror work, diving in deep into self, seeing yourself for where you're at currently. Okay? If you have addictions, looking at your addictions, looking at many of the versions of yourself, some of them which are false. If you have aspects of yourselves that's not integrated, you want to pull those parts together. If you have trauma, you have self-created obstacles that came about from those trauma. You got to hold yourself accountable, not in fear, not in judgment, but just as an observer of self, and reflect and really do that shadow work, really get yourself balanced, get yourself in alignment. Okay, nobody's perfect, but at least recognize where you are, right? And then once you're able to do that, so once you move past all of that, work, shadow work, trauma, and things of that nature, then you can start beginning to understand earth. Right? This is where the magical, if you want to call it magical, metaphysics, whatever. This is where you can start building a relationship with earth.
Yes.
Okay, and very, very simple. to build a relationship with Earth. Okay, so very, very easy to build a relationship with Earth. You can maybe get a piece of land. I mean, if you can't get a piece of land, then maybe you could look in your backyard.
Yes.
Find a tree that you really like. Okay, build a relationship with the tree, right? Get to understand the tree, or build a relationship with your backyard. Like go out in nature, right? But find a sacred spot. And then once you do that, you know, you go out at the spot. Maybe you go there every day, every other day, and you just, you know, start building that relationship with Mother Earth, respecting Mother Earth, and start understanding, you know, what she provides. What does Mother Earth provide to me? And then, you know, you start looking at the medicine that Mother Earth has in the food. You know, you understand the ley lines, which you just went over. Understand how they work.
Yes.
Okay, and understand the healing that's in the plants. Understand how you can work with the plants and how they can heal you, right? And understand the food that you eat, not just the eat and swallow and you know, feel good and stuff, but really have a relationship with the food that you eat and listen to your body. Right?
Yes.
Listen to your body when your body is telling you, oh man, I think you shouldn't have ate that cake. No. That in my stomach. No, you did something. So you have to really listen to how your body is interacting with what you put it inside of it. Show it some respect.
Yes.
And so that's just a small way for you to start learning how to work with that earth energy and knowing that it's outside and it's also inside.
Right. Yeah, because when it comes to mastering the elements, in order for, like my baby was saying, in order for you to master the elements, you first have to master yourself, and recognizing that you have these elements inside of you from the beginning. Now you have to start building a relationship with yourself.
Right.
So many times people externalize and try to build relationships outside of themselves, but the first step into mastering the elements is to build a relationship with yourself first.
Yes, and you see how that works together, as within, so without. So to build a relationship with Mother Nature, you have to first build one with yourself. And then when you have those two aspects, then you have balance within the middle. And this is how you if you want to master anything, you first have to know it. And then once you know it, then you find that balance. It's like riding a bike. You're not going anywhere on that bike unless you can balance those wheels.
Yes. Now on to the next element, which is water. Okay, you see water everywhere unless you live in the desert, but I don't think anybody here lives in the desert. But you can find water everywhere. You find it in the ocean, you find it in the lakes, you can actually find it underneath your feet, underneath the ground.
It has water.
I mean, where do you think whales come from?
Yeah.
I mean, you can find water everywhere. And you can also find water inside of you.
75% water. The body is made up of 75%. That's a lot of water.
That is a lot of water. And then when you understand the characteristics of water, how fluid it is, and how healing it is, and how pure it is. And when you think about fluids, you can also look at your blood.
Yeah. Your
blood is also a representation of water. Okay? Now, just like water brings life and it purifies and it brings healing, it also brings destruction.
Right. It can be overwhelming, hard to contain, destructive, and very, very powerful.
Right.
And so this is on the outside, mind you.
Now, speaking on another level here, the water is also a representation of your emotions, because your emotions are very fluid. They come in and out very quickly. They're hard to contain in most situations. So once again, these are some things that are already inside of you. But let's think about, how can we master the element of water?
Yeah, so first you got to master it, you know, on the outside. So you want to learn how to swim, you know. Get familiar with water. Get comfortable with water. If you want to just sit and just look at the ocean You know, look at the ripples. Dive in. You just get comfortable with water. You know, when you drink your water, talk to your water, because water stores emotion.
Yes.
It's a holder. It's a filter. Water it heals. So drink your water, put good vibes in your water, build that relationship with water. And then on the inside, how you work with water is knowing that your emotions, that's like water. So just like water, you can have good emotions, you can have balanced emotions, but then again, like my baby says, you could just erupt over emotion. Like you can be an empath. You know, when you have an empath and you get super sensitive and you go around certain people, it throws you off. That's water, emotion, out of balance.
Yes.
Right? So learning how to work with the elements outside and within yourself, again, you meet in the middle and you find that balance in really learning how to master that element within and outside, and understanding that the relationship with water is sacred. You have to have this understanding to know that, hey, sometimes water floods stuff. You know, that's just the relationship it has.
Cracks. And you know, water is so powerful that it can even erode a rock. Like even over time, and this is just like your emotions. Okay? Sometimes your emotions can just keep running and running over you to the point where you feel raw. Like you feel like you're just down to your bones. Because if you look into nature once again, and you just watch how over decades, water would take a rock that has rough edges and spiky and all of this stuff and make it smooth and just smooth it down just by the water running over it. So once again, the water has life-giving aspects, and then it also has destructive aspects.
Just like us, inside and out, same thing.
Yep. Now on to fire.
Ooh, juicy.
Oh boy, talking about our fire signs here. A lot of people know about these fire signs. You gotta watch out for them. But fire is everywhere, and just like all the other elements that we talked about, it can be it can serve good for you. Because like when you're cooking, you need fire to cook your food.
Yes.
Okay. And also, it can be destructive. For our people out in California with these brush fires, they know how destructive fire can be.
Yes, but it's just the element and understanding the relationship. And to build a relationship with fire on a physical level, learn how to create fire without, matches. Do some Girl Scouts and what's that?
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
They go. When I was little, we would go into nature and we would create fire with them sticks and those stones. So learn how it works. Understand the fire. Get comfortable with heat. Sometimes we get hot. It's okay to get hot. Get comfortable with the heat. Go into the sauna. Let it purify you. It's a purifier. Fire purifies.
Yeah, and actually we got to back up a little bit as far as talking about the characteristics of fire, because fire represents passion. Fire represents acceleration, and also represents transformation. And when you look into the transformational part of fire, which in some cases it looks like it's destructing, but is actually just helping to transform. Because just think about it, when you have a forest fire and everything seems like it's destroyed, but if you come back a couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, you start to notice that new flowers start to bloom that never bloomed before. And you got all these new species that are not coming in. So that fire, even though it looked like it was destructive, it was actually making room for something new to come through.
Right. So that's the transformative energy of fire on the physical plane. Looking at it introspectively on a transformative perspective, right? It's like, let's say you lost a job, but you're getting a new one, right? Something is starting and something is beginning. So that's the fire. That's the passion. It's transformative. So you're going from one phase to the next, because fire breaks down things. So it's breaking down the food, and it's creating something else. Or you can have ice, you put it in some heat, it's turn it into something else. So the fire energy is it's a transformative type of energy, and it does it quick. The passion, depending on the temperature, at our temperature,
Yeah.
our emotion temperature, depending on where that is, will depend on how quick we build something or destroy it.
Right.
Just like fire.
Yep. So fire coming through, just wrecking shop. So, but one other thing, as far as when it comes to the transformational part, just also remember that whenever you're experiencing any type of change, that's also a representation of fire, because you have to understand that the fire is the ignition to get something started. Okay, so say for example, you start a new job. Like the old job was just treating you like crap. That was just the fire being put under your butt to get you going to something else. Or you end up changing in relationships. Now, you may have been in an abusive relationship and they just didn't treat you well mentally, physically, and spiritually, but that was the ignition that you needed to get your butt out of that relationship, get yourself back together, and start learning how to master self so that you can get into another relationship, if that's the case, into a one that's more harmonious, one that's more balanced. So fire is awesome in so many ways.
I concur.
All right. And on to the fourth element, which is air. Okay. Now, some of the characteristics of air, once again, just like all the other elements, it can bring life and it can bring destruction.
Yes.
Just like you see this little girl here, she's just blowing the, what do you call that plant again? Is that a dandelion?
I think so.
Well, okay. So she's just blowing on it, just having fun with the plants. But then the destructive side, we all know about tornadoes. And that is just all wind right there, just coming through, wrecking shop, literally.
Wow.
So this element has its good side and it has its bad side, but it's all one and the same. And there's nothing really separate.
You just have to learn how to work with these elements and understand the relationships that it does have. And, it's a time to build up and it's a time to destroy. It's just a part of nature. And understanding how it also works within yourself. Understanding that air is a representation of your thoughts. Okay? So remember the emotional subtle body. When you master the air, you can control your thoughts. So this is why you want to master these elements. And when you master these elements, internally, you master yourself. And, take, for example, you have breathing exercise, and you can use breathing exercises to really harness in those energies to get that chi energy, that prana going, right? Because once you learn how to control your thoughts, you can control you can start responding versus reacting. Because when you're reacting to something, you're not in control.
No.
Because then you have what's called regrets, right? So you want to learn how to master these elements.
Yes. And quick thing here, and this actually goes back to the first day when we were talking about the 7 subtle bodies and how your not the 7 subtle bodies, but as far as breaking down the belief systems and the thoughts that just come by. Actually, it actually is, still tied into the 7 subtle bodies, and also breaking down those belief systems is understanding that these thoughts are outside of you and understanding how they get in. Because if you look at wind and air and you see how it interacts on the external form, because even though you may have built a house that is really strong, it will still find a creek or something to come through and blow some cold wind in. So you have to understand how these things seep through. And when you can see it on the external form, then you can see it on the internal form, how these thoughts that are not yours are creeping in through to your space.
Right, but the key is to be the observer. The key is to become more aware, more conscious of what's happening and what's taking place so that you can recognize these things. And if you can recognize something, then you have the ability to do something about it.
There you go. Now, another good way of building a relationship with air is if you have any type of mantras or chants or just your favorite song, just put them to music. Just sing it. You don't have to be Mariah Carey or any famous singer or anything of that nature, because this is just for you. You're building a relationship with you. You're building a relationship of air with yourself. And singing is a really good way of developing that relationship with the element of air, because you're using your vocal cords to push the air in and out to make something that's harmonious. So that's another good way of really developing a relationship with the element air. Right? And on to the last one that we're going to go into today, which is for the spirit. Oh, hold on, I didn't want to do that. Okay. So for the spirit characteristics, once again, life-giving, life taketh away. All right. But one of the basic characteristics that you want to remember about spirit is that it's energy, that is life force, that is wisdom.
Yes.
And above anything else, you have to acknowledge that you are spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you can understand that you are spirit, which goes back into our first day where we talked about you're not your body, you're not your emotions, and you're not the mind. Okay, so if you're not those three things, then you are spirit, who is observing everything that's going on, from all of the emotions that you feel, all of the actions that you take, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. And with the element of spirit, if you want to really have a better understanding of the element spirit, you want to think of breath, right? Mm-hmm. Again, spirit comes from the word spiritus, Latin word spiritus, which means breath, which means life. So you can think of spirit as like the animation. Mm-hmm. See, this body is moving. It's in animation because of the spirit, because of the breath. And so the breath gives life to everything on planet Earth. So everything that's moving, that's in animation, it has that spirit. You know, when you're in school, they tell you that plants are living, they're alive. And you're like, well, they don't move. How are they alive? They don't move. Right? But they are alive. They have that life force within them. Mm-hmm. And we do a natural exchange of energy with the plants every single second of every day. So it's the life force, it's the wisdom, it's the energy that runs through life. And that's the spirit. And if you want to master spirit, you have to master your dream state.
Yes.
That's how you master spirit, is because this is the intangible aspect of everything that exists in the unseen, right? Just like oxygen. That's it. Oxygen. You can't see it, but if you lose it, you die. You're not. You well, not even die, but you transition into another world where it could exist. Because this is where we get the saying, you know, we are a spiritual being having a human experience, which means we have other bodies. We have you know, we have other realms where our spirit can exist. But in this particular realm, this physical realm, it really needs the vessel to be able to maneuver and to do certain things.
Right.
Right? But the spirit is the actual life force that can transition. So it transcends this 3D, it transcends pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you want to master this, you have to master your dreams. And one of the ways to do this is to get a dream journal. The whole point of this is to become awake in the dream.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Because once you're awake in the dream and you are aware that you're dreaming, okay, then you have mastered the element spirit.
Yes.
And then when you transition, you're really more conscious. You're more in a different awareness. Another thing you can do is lucid dream, and you can do astral projection. Those are two ways to master the spirit element.
Because if you can do those things, you are a bad mama jamma.
Bad mama jamma.
Yes, 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 yes. And now this point is just for the Q&A. So at this point, if you do have any questions,